I'm gonna go ahead and talk.
Thank you for joining us for our second annual Yo Soy Google Hangout. This year's topic is Seeing Yourselves, Young Parents, Popular Culture, and Representation. My name is Natasha Vianna. I'm joining the Hangout today from San Francisco. I'm the mom of an amazing little 10-year-old girl who I gave birth to at 17, and I am the co-founder of No Teen Shame. No Teen Shame is a national movement that was created by 7 young moms across the country in collaboration with strong families to illuminate the immediate need for equitable access to resources and support for young families. So let's start with the facts about young parents. Parents of all ages will face challenges, and with respect, recognition, and resources, can be successful in achieving their dreams. In addition, birth among young people between the ages of 15 and 19 has been on the decline since 1990, yet we still hear messages that shame and blame young parents for society's problems. But we know that sexual and reproductive health are key components to the overall health and well-being of Latino youth, yet our communities are facing persistent barriers when it comes to accessing healthcare resources, achieving economic security, and attaining education and career goals. But in addition, young Latinos are facing an overwhelming amount of scrutiny and stereotyping when it comes to our sexuality. So today, we are talking about the realities of being a young parent, how the media and popular culture portray young parents, but also the future that we're building for ourselves, our children, and our communities as we grapple with how we're portrayed and what our stories really look like. So first, I'd like to take a moment to introduce, or I would let them introduce themselves. So here are some of the young people who are joining us from different parts of the country.
Hi, everyone. My name is Danielle Vega. I am coming to you live from Los Angeles, California. I play Ceci Camayo, who is a young mother on the Hulu series East Los High. My daughter on the show is 3 years old, and she's a firecracker. And I'm really excited to be here with you guys today.
Hello, everybody. My name is Manuel Flores. This is my second annual Google Hangout here with you guys. So excited. I'm joining you guys from Los Angeles, California as well. I am a parent to Abigail Marie Flores. She's age 3, about to be 4 years old in September. I am a young dad and young parent advocate with California Latinos for Reproductive Justice, Justice for Young Families, Parent Leadership Council Advisory Board. And
Hi, you all. I am Shatia Burks, and I'm coming you guys from New York City. I'm also a young parent advocate, but I'm also the New York Latina Advocacy Network Fellow in partnership with the National Latinos for Reproductive Health. My son is Tyvon Burks Ely, and he's 3 going on 4 years old. I'm happy to be here.
Hi everyone, my name is Tanya Molinar. I'm over here in Denver, Colorado, and I have a beautiful 5-year-old son named Aiden, and I was part of the 2015 LIPS cohort, which stands for Latinas Increasing Political Strength, and that is through an organization here in Colorado called COLOR, which stands for Colorado Organization for Latina Opportunity and Reproductive Rights. So thanks for having me.
Yay, thank you all for joining. So this Google Hangout will really focus on the representation of young parents in the media, pop culture, and society. And as many of us know, May is Teen Pregnancy Prevention Month. And unfortunately, this month often means the launch of pregnancy prevention campaigns that really focus on shaming and stigmatizing young parents. So our first question for everyone is to set some context. When we talk about messages that shame young parents, what exactly does that look like? And can you offer some examples of how this might look like in your community or society at large?
So I can touch base towards that question, and I think a big part of it is what you mentioned, the really emphasis on prevention that our society has, and a lot of outreach from prevention programs. And then what happens once those prevention programs don't work and you're faced with being a young parent, there's not a lot of promotion towards support programs. And so that in and of itself is very shameful because it really leaves young parents in the dark as to what to do after that. And then, you go home and turn on the TV and see shows like Teen Mom on MTV, which really put a dramatic spin on being a young parent and portrayed it in a whole different light that's not very realistic. In my experience as a college student at the University of Denver, college settings, in particular mine and just higher education settings, don't have a lot of support for young parents. And when you meet people and tell them that you're a parent, they're not very supportive either. So that's another example of the way that young parents can be shamed, and it can look differently across different settings, but that's been my experience.
Well, I guess you can say messages that shame young parents looks like stereotyping here in New York City, and then it also tells us like that our lives are over. So previously, and a couple of years ago, like Mayor Bloomberg had launched his whole teen pregnancy campaign, which stigmatized a bunch of parents, including myself. He uses like different kids from different backgrounds to show like this is what's going to happen to you become a parent. So one of his ads showed like a little brown skinned girl, of course, probably Latino, and it was like, oh, hey mom, honestly, he's not going to stay with you. What happens to me after he leaves? And I was just like, wow, like, were you trying to say that as in our families that we're not going to like continue our families after we have our kids? No, we can still keep our families together despite being a teen parent. Another would be the whole our kids are faced with if you're born to a teen parent, you're also become a teen parent. And I've said it on more than one occasion that my mom is not a teen mom, but I became a teen mom. So no, it is not like generational. It's just something that just happens due to like the lack of access of education and contraception out here in New York City as well.
Well, some of the context when we talk about message shame, it usually portrays like putting someone down in the community, and then when it comes to teen parents, I feel like it's coming up to putting us in real shame in a way where people see us as, or the community in general sees us as kids raising kids, or the prejudiced view of going into like of a young couple walking towards a park, and then having the community see us with the tummy. Like most of the times that prejudiced view can really mean a lot and put us in shame. Also, another thing would be like how the community puts us as a one more stats in the book, and that really puts a lot of the teen parents down. And most of the work that's being done is to be able to hear our voice and be able to communicate a great message to support young parents and have us be part of this community and not put us down in shame like it has always been. And I guess with the help of media and stuff like that, I guess we could get our voices across and be able to portray a better picture of young parents and who we really are.
I think also shame can come in the form of lack of opportunities. I think sometimes most of the time, regardless of whatever age you are as a woman, when you have a child, a lot of people think that you're not fit to work certain jobs anymore. And especially if you have to go to school, you have to juggle multiple jobs as well as being a parent, that some people don't even want to give you the chance of hiring you. Ceci deals with a lot of that, especially on the show, and something that that she has struggled with in previous seasons is the fact that she loves to dance, and that's ultimately what she wants to do with her life. But when she had a child, she had to, or has had to, struggle with giving up on that dream. And I think that East Los High does a good job of telling you that, one, you don't have to, because I think that a lot of times we do think that, you know, we have to put our child first, but ultimately we have to do what's best. And if that means continuing to follow your dream, then go ahead and go for it. But a lot of times, you know, society will tell you, oh no, you have to just do this thing and you can't do this because it's not going to give you enough time with your daughter, with your son, with your family. But it's not their decision, it's yours. So I think that you can be shamed through opportunities for sure.
Thank you for that. Yeah, shame definitely has such a deep impact and happens on so many levels. But one thing I thought would be really interesting for us to talk about is the representation of Latino youth and young parents in the media. So maybe Manuel, can you talk a little bit about how young parents are portrayed in the media, the difference between young mothers and young fathers? And this can include everything from TV, film, music, billboards, etc., and maybe how this has affected you or even your own perspective as a young dad.
Sure, I would like to share some of the stuff. Well, most of the times we see in TVs, like for instance, um, 15 and pregnant or 16 and pregnant, most of the times how young moms and young fathers are being put down through shows like this, and then billboards, like for instance, like having a picture of a child and in a total mess and saying, like, you know, if you're not ready for parenthood, like use a condom or a contraception or something like that. I mean, it really gives us a broad message when you look at it as a teen parent, because most of the times you're like, okay, I have a child myself, so what are they trying to really interpret here? I mean, the struggle is really, there is really a struggle, but you know, we overcome that struggle with like tears, fears, and I mean, but we all do it for a cause, and that's for our little ones, which really look upon us. Also, I mean, TVs, like the TV show I just mentioned, like 16 and Pregnant, they most likely put the mom into a big struggle where they they make it seem like the dad's the one walking out in the relationship, when sometimes there's dads like myself that like to stay and commit into the relationship and be able to, like, you know, to say, like, you know what, I'm doing this. This is what I want. This is the future. Like, I don't want a young Latino dad like myself being portrayed in a TV show, like saying, like, you know what, he just walked on me. Like, let's live the real picture, who we really are. Most of the times we see, like, you know, rich, a good environment on TV shows about young parents, but the real picture is, how is a Latino with a low income resource doing it? Like, that's the real picture. We need to really put and emphasize that in a real production or a TV show, that would really have our voice to be heard and be able to have a bigger picture in a broad diversity place.
Thank you. I totally agree. And we know that young parents have been portrayed negatively in the media, but this seems to be changing. Danielle, do you think that there are positive portrayals of young parents in TV and movies today? And can you speak about your role on the show and the importance of your character given all of the negative images that young parents encounter today?
Yeah, sure. I definitely see a change, and you know, as much as I would like to say that East Los High implemented it, we weren't the first, obviously, but I think that we do a good job of portraying all of the different circumstances that surround, you know, someone being a young parent. Ceci gets pregnant in high school, her senior year at the age of 17, and she ultimately goes through every decision possible, whether or not to get an abortion, to give the baby up for adoption. But she ultimately decides to keep the baby and raise her herself, even with her family turning her away. So she is doing it. She's doing it on her own with the support of her friends, and I think that that alone sends a very positive message that, one, you are capable, and two, there are resources available to help you through the process. And she learns a lot of that along the way. She's still learning that, you know, healthcare for one, and you know, going to you know, like Planned Parenthood and finding all of the available resources and just things that are important for the development of her child. And I think that that alone is creating a very positive change in letting people know that there are options, one, and you're not alone throughout this process.
And that's super important. And so with so many shows out there, but focusing on the Latino community, what is the impact of shows like East Los High, or even shows like Jane the Virgin that address sexuality and pregnancy in culturally relevant ways for our community?
So shows like East Los High and Jane the Virgin are important for many reasons. They talk about like issues we care for immigrant rights, economic inequality, dignity for our young families, and reproductive health care, and all kinds of accessible and culturally. So I guess you can sit here and say like many times we aren't receiving information at home or in school or in the media. So it's very important that we can drive out the messages, especially like people coming from like Latino backgrounds and whatnot. We really have shows that show us. So I kind of like those two shows themselves, like it shows exactly what our families are and like how to access certain things as well too.
I would completely piggyback off what Shatia said and agree with that. And again, just bringing up these topics that are often very taboo in Latino communities. And first of all, being able to turn on the TV and see someone that looks like you being portrayed on television is huge too, because we don't get to see that a lot in general. However, I think that we still have a really long way to go in terms of getting more shows out like this and having Latinos portrayed, because we're such a diverse community. And so when we are limited, it can be difficult to portray all of the different experiences that we have. But I think that we're on a really good path with those shows to start talking about sexuality and our culture and what that means, and all of these different issues and topics that we face as a community.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I'm such a huge fan of these shows myself, because it's so nice to be able to see shows where young parents are portrayed in a way that actually feels a little bit accurate to what our real lives are like. So let's move on to the topic of policy and what young people need to be successful. Policy can often seem inaccessible to young parents, or young people in general. So I know many of you have been advocates in your communities and have been a part of the policy process, and obviously helping make young people's voices heard. So Tanya, if I can ask you, can you speak about your own views on policy? How have your views on policy changed, and why? And what would you say to young Latinos or young parents who are watching this who might not feel like they can participate because they are part of mixed status families or who are undocumented?
Yeah, this is a very good question, because the word policy can be intimidating, I feel like. And a lot of people, whether you're young or whatever your status might be, you don't know how you can get involved, what that means. It sounds a little scary. And so that was my experience before I learned through LIPS about what that meant and how I could participate. And joining LIPS and being able to go to DC and lobby and learn about how policy is made was such a huge privilege. And I think that's something that sometimes people don't have the opportunity to be able to do. So I would urge young people to look for organizations in their communities that provide them opportunities to be able to do that if they're able to. And so yeah, it has changed a lot. Now I don't feel as intimidated by the word policy and what I actually know what that means, what I can do. And it can be very simple. You can do a lot towards policy making and decision making, or you could do very little, like going and doing a testimony for a bill or something that is being talked about or discussed. And I would say, especially for young people, young parents, and people who come from families with mixed statuses, just such as myself, or are undocumented, that is very important for you to still be involved, because these laws and bills and policy affect you, and it's important to get your experiences heard and your opinions. And so there's a lot of ways to be involved in policy where you don't have to share what your status is. But I think a really safe way to do it is to get involved with organizations that support issues that you care about, and really talk to them about how you can get involved, what you can do, and learn about how policy kind of making goes and what that entails, so that you're more aware and educated. But I would say definitely don't be intimidated by the word, because it's a lot less, fancy than it sounds.
Yeah, I totally agree. And usually we find that once we get involved, we really, really enjoy the process too. Manuel, what policies do you think are needed to support young people? And what policies are needed to ensure that young parents can thrive? And also, if you can talk a little bit about some of the policy and advocacy work that you've done, that would be great.
Sure. There's been technically, like Tanya just mentioned, policy is a big word when it comes to being able to interact with it. But we have to lose that fear, and I was able to have that fear as well as Tanya, which I can connect to a lot. When it comes to policy, I feel like perhaps policy can be able to provide a voice for young families who are committed. Also, for fathers, because most of the times fathers tend to be out of the picture, but there should be policy really reinforcing fathers who want to be part of their families and be able to hear their voices, not only for us as young parents, but in general, diversity for adults, because age really doesn't really define a good parent. A little bit of my advocacy work. Well, I lately just went for legislative visits to Sacramento. We talked about bills that we know that would really benefit young parents, and one of the bills that really interested me was AB 1014, which is parental leave, which allows teen parents to be able to keep their education and be able to have time with their child after birth, and for those who, for instance, young fathers who are not going through labor, they have time to be able to spend time with their child as well. As for me, I did share a very interesting story of myself with one of the legislators, where I spoke about, it was very hard to be able to be there with my daughter on the first day when she was born, because it was just a one-day thing, going to the hospital when my girlfriend was in labor, and then the next day go back to school. I really look upon this bill, because it would help not only me as a father, but other fathers who are trying to be there and have a great bond connection with their little ones, which would have been a great experience if I was able to be there all the time. Because most of the times, a young mom could have their child, but they need the support of their father as well, because labor, I can see, seeing what the struggle that my girlfriend went through labor, I can really see that she really needed my companionship and me to be there. And I guess this bill would really, not only would it help us as teen parents, but also to be able to accomplish education-wise, be able to graduate, and be able to be a big role model into our little ones' life, and for them to look up to. And I guess this bill really hit me the most, and I'm for it.
Yeah, thank you. And your involvement really matters. And recently, we know that there's been also a lot of noise around access to accurate, comprehensive sexual education, but we know that only a handful of states are actually providing comprehensive sexual health education to young people. So Danielle, why do you think it's important to fight for comprehensive sexual education, and what would you tell policymakers?
I think that saying still rings true, where knowledge is power. I think the more we're educated, the better decisions we'll be capable of making. I know for me, when I was in school, the sexual education really just consisted of fear tactics, or scare tactics, rather, where they would show you every possible disease that you could get from having sex without really telling you how to prevent yourself from catching them. And I think that, maybe not take that route, but for sure, sexual education is definitely necessary in today's society, not only for the education purpose of letting people know the outcome possibilities, but to also just give us the ability to make the best decision for our lives. And I think with that, we would have to be educated on condoms, on birth control, on the aftermath. If we do get pregnant, if we do have a child, what are our options? I think all of that is necessary for us, to, I don't know, just have a better outlook on this whole stigma that's surrounded by young pregnancy and by young parenting and sex in general. So my message to the policymakers would be, don't deny us that information, especially if you want things to change, because it's really important to see change happen. You have to educate your people.
I agree. And as we know, the representation in the political process is really important for the Latino community because it can guarantee much of those resources and information and support that we need. So what resources do you think young parents and Latino youth should be aware of, whether it's organizations that support them or information that they might need?
Well, out here in New York City, we have like multiple programs for teen parents, ironically enough. So when I got pregnant, I was actually homeless. So I went through like Safe Horizons Streetwear Project for somewhere to stay in the beginning, and then I ended up at Inwood House. This other program is called SCO Family Services. But at NLIRH, we tend to connect our young families with other programs depending on what you're going through. So example, for like health, I can sit here and say that Mount Sinai is great for teen parents because they have a teen parent program. So after you give birth to your child, you're able to see the same exact physician as your child. For school, we have life programs inside of our high schools, of course, that way our teen parents don't have to like stop being in school. You bring your child to school with you and they get to learn the same way that you're learning. As far as like healthcare, education, and job employment, is kind of scary out here in New York City, because of like the way they feel as if they're kind of discriminatory, but depending on who you know, depending on where you're gonna work, and also it goes in your background. I've managed to be lucky enough to like have multiple jobs because I have multiple backgrounds, but then housing is still scarce depending on who you're living with. So in New York City, Department of Homeless Services does not consider you to be homeless unless you're living on the streets. But if you have someone that's willing to vouch for you and help you out, it goes a long way. ACS also like has like a teen parent program through Inwood House. So after ACS sees that you're going through what you're going through, they forward your referral to NYCHA, which is New York City Housing Authority, and you get like first priority. So there's multiple programs out here in New York City that they're able to access.
That's really awesome and good to know. And so as we've kind of talked about in different ways, whether it's comprehensive sexual education or support for young families, or both, because they're not mutually exclusive, it's a reminder that our voices really, really matter. And as young people, as young parents, and as Latinos, like, we really need to understand how important our voices are in making sure that things are shaped for us, nothing for us without us. But also a reminder to people to make sure that meaningful seats at the table are created for us so that we can really help inform policies that will really, really help us. And we're at a time right now where we're also choosing our next president, so it's incredibly important for us to be aware of how our voices play a role in shaping the future. We have the ability to vote for who gets to shape our future for us. So let's talk a little bit about the future and what we want as young Latinos and young parents. We focused a lot on the representation of Latino youth and young parents in pop culture, as well as their representation in the political process. But let's speak to our dreams and hopes, because those are super valid as well. So let's give them a reality check and speak from our perspective as young parents. Can you speak about your hopes and dreams for you and for your family? And what do you want people to know about young parents?
I guess I'll start. Being a young parent isn't what everyone make it seem to be. It's not brain science or anything. And I've always said it more than once. Doesn't matter how old you are, you're still going to have a struggle of having a child. You can have your kid at 35 and you're still going to struggle because you do not know what you're getting yourself into. As far as like hopes and dreams of me and my son, I would say, well, his dream is to be a basketball player. So we're going to make him a basketball player. As far as myself, I guess you can say it's like being successful and like finishing off college and like maintaining a sustainable job and a career that I enjoy doing, which we consider either advocacy work or sexual education, because I realized in like New York City when I did health education in high school, I don't remember anything of it, don't remember having it. So now I'm one of those people that I feel like I really want to embark on my future and everyone else's future. That way they do not end up where I ended up today.
Okay, so I'll go ahead and jump in. I think when it comes to this, the reality really does hit in, and I feel like, I mean, we are living reality as young parents, so we just gotta step it up and just leave those stereotypes away on the side. Um, my dreams and my aspiration is to be able to be there with my little one, for her to be, um, being able to like to see me as a role model in her life, and being a young parent doesn't like mean we're left behind. It just means a new beginning. A new generation has opened up. Like every child is a new future, no matter how they got here. Like my daughter once, it really catches my attention on how, or my emotions, I should say, on how this one time I went to a job fair at her Head Start program, and she was getting dressed up into all these like job costumes and stuff like that. And I asked her, what would you like to be as when you grow up? And she really looked upon me, and made eye contact with her, and she mentioned, I want to be like you, papi, which brought tears and a lot of emotions into me. And I was really looking up into like her future, and I know she could be anything she wants. I have discussions with her mom about like what she would like to be, what she would pursue. I know my goals is to pursue a career in law enforcement, but also be able to advocate for more teen parents, because our voice needs to be heard no matter what. And we are role models no matter what, and can be up to date with our little ones and circumstances when we get the chance to, and be able to go with them side by side.
Yeah, I am with Manuel here on the emotionality, because I am graduating from college from the University of Denver here in less than 2 weeks, or about 2 weeks, and so it's going to be a very emotional moment. And I've had my son with me the whole time. He's lived with me on campus. He's gone to classes with me, meetings, extracurricular activities, everything. And so he's going to remember that, being in college with me, getting exposed to that higher education setting very early on. And I'm very excited for what's next for us, and really that question of what's next, because sometimes when you find out you're going to be a young parent, or for young parents now that maybe are hearing messages about that's all, like that's all that you can do. You have to change your plans, change your dreams accordingly. And I really don't agree with that, because people told me that and I knew exactly where I wanted to go, and that's what I did. And I'm about to finish my bachelor's and go on to a PhD here hopefully in a couple of years. And so it's very exciting, and I hope that really becomes attainable for more people, because a lot of people say, I don't, young parents drop out and all of this. Well, yes, if you're not giving them the support and resources, there's not a lot that they are able to do. And so really providing them with that, so that they're able to do the great things that they can do, is what I hope that can happen. And as for my son, really, I think getting that message early on of, if I did it with you, you can do so much more, and you can do it in a great way. And there really shouldn't be anyone setting limits to what you can achieve in life, because it's not a thing. It's not real.
You guys are also amazing. And also, congratulations to all of you because you're each doing really, really incredible things. And I know it's a word that we don't hear enough. So congratulations. Danielle, I have a question for you. What do you hope that you can achieve with East Los High? And like, what is the impact that you would like to have with the show?
You know, I mean, portraying a young single mom on television, portraying you guys on a show, I just hope that I am able to do justice and really, to piggyback off of what Tanya said, just get the message out there that, one, you don't have to give up on your dream, and like all of you said, that, I mean, you see that hope in your kids' eyes, and you just want to do better for them than you were able to do for yourself. And if that means finishing your education, if that means working 2 jobs to put them in a dance class, that's what Ceci has to do, and it's, you know, making those tough decisions so that you can put a smile on their face. But you guys truly are amazing, and I'm trying not to get all verklempt, but hearing these stories and meeting you guys I hope I'm doing justice in portraying that type of role. And I hope that the show has a lot of impact in really, really giving that message, because I think that it's a message that needs to be seen, that needs to be heard, and just giving the hope that you can make it happen even as a young parent, even as a single parent, even, you know, with a kid.
And we thank and appreciate you, Danielle. Thank you.
Thank you.
So for all the young parents on the call, what advice would you give to other young parents?
I guess I'll go ahead and jump in. I think an advice that I would give to young parents is, you know, don't let your self-esteem get put down by the community or the society or the way they, like, the prejudiced view. Just keep going. I mean, as long as you know that you're doing it for a good cause and for your little one, I guess overall in general the outcome's going to be the best, because you're doing it for your little one. You're not doing it for a stereotype that you would believe, or a myth like kids raising kids. That's all a myth. Just keep going, you know, like you're always going to overcome that. Say, like, for instance, myself, when I looked at the picture where I'm like walking my daughter to the park, and then they're letting me know, like, you know, is that your sister? Are you her cousin? Like, no, that's my daughter. That's my daughter. That's my blood. You know, just be who you are. Like, let your voice be heard, because that's what we need nowadays, your voice to be heard, because we need to, like, break that wall of silence that, you know, always putting teen parents down. Like, we need our voice to be heard in general. Like, so if you ever are judged or stereotyped, break the walls of silence, because your voice is valuable.
Yeah, I would second that by a lot, because that was one of the things that was hard for me at first. It hasn't been up until recently that I've become really comfortable with sharing my story and who I am, and it's not something that comes easy. It's a very vulnerable thing to do, to be able to share who you are and what you've been through, and that you're a young parent, which is something that you might talk to someone who is okay with it and supports you and is really cool about it, or you might meet someone that isn't. And so it can be hard to be vulnerable. And so I would definitely echo what Manuel said and share your story as much as possible.
I guess I'm going to have to third what the both of them said. But I guess the only other advice I can sit here and give to any other teen parent is just be yourself. Like, you are still you. Don't let what anyone else has to say about you being a teen parent ever affect you. Like, the stigma and the shame that we all receive isn't who you are. You are who you want to be. You are who you want to become as a teen parent. The other thing would also have to be, like Tanya said, share your story, because your story is going to always be unique. It doesn't matter where it comes from or how it comes out. Don't worry about what anyone else has to say about you as well. Oh, and then reach out to, like, all the other orgs that want to help you guys. I'm just like, hey, I'm always here for the help.
That's
I
so
think
great.
the only other thing that I would say is that I'm not going to kind of get on this Google Hangout and say that it's easy, because it's not. That would be a total lie. And so I think that just realize that those are the times that are going to happen. It's going to be hard sometimes, but getting through that is really important, and finding people to support you, as you all mentioned. So definitely don't want to say that it's really easy or anything like that, because you will face challenges and you will break down and cry a lot of times, like I have, but it's all worth it for that little one that you're raising, and for other people that are looking up to you. And so, yeah.
Yeah, and I would even personally add that, you know, as a young mom, and my daughter's 10 now, one of the things that I thought was really, really important was understanding and accepting that motherhood is just one part of my identity, and that I didn't have to necessarily let go of all the other things that I love doing and that make me who I am. And so one of the things that I thought I had to do was, you know, let go of my youth. Like, I was no longer a young person, therefore I could no longer do young people things. And I think it's important for young people to remember that, you know, if you become a young parent, you're still entitled to live your life, you know, to fulfill your dreams and to carry on the way that you had planned. That parenthood is one part of your identity, but it doesn't define every part of what you do. And then finally, I'd love for each of you to share what your ideal young parent storyline would look like, and, you know, what would we see, what would it be, and what types of young parent portrayals and stories do you want to see more of?
Well, I guess for me, what I would like to see happen with my character as a young mother, um, I honestly, like, I think that everyone deserves a happy ending, truly. And if you are continuing to work hard and do right by not only by yourself, but by your child, then you deserve good things to happen to you. Whether that's like Tanya getting her degree, congratulations, you know, or, you know, just being a provider to your kid, and being able to see them flourish, asking them what they want to be, and them having high dreams already, high goals already. I think that that is a direct reflection of your parenting. You're showing them that the world is, you know, their oyster. But I would love to see Ceci have a very happy ending, and to see, you know, the progress that her daughter Isela makes in life, and really showing that she's not a product of her circumstances. Although her mother is struggling right now, there is light at the end of the tunnel, and I want that to be a reflection or a message to all of the young parents that there is hope. Like, you can still follow your dreams, yes, and make things happen, not only for yourself but for your kid.
Just like Danielle said, I just want a storyline that has hope. Oh my Jesus. It's like, I know being a teen parent is hard, but I feel like in any kind of teen storyline, please don't depict us being like extreme strugglers living in all kinds of poverty and squalor, because that's not always true. That's not always the case. Also depict that our families do have a whole lot of love in them. Like, it's not all kinds of just bad bashing and all kinds of heartbreak. We're family. So we do love each other. Yes, we may have this like whole fighting or whatnot, but we're family still. And we may be a young family, but we're still a family. Like, have us showing them we have hope and we have love for each other, and like we are successful no matter how we achieve it.
Yeah, I think Shatia and Danielle have both said really great things, and I would just add to that there are a lot of different stories, and all of our stories are very different, and so I would love to see that portrayed a little bit more, just the diversity of experiences that can happen. I know, you know, we chose to keep our kids and raise them, but there are people out there that don't do that, and that's okay. And so portraying that also, you know, the being okay with getting an abortion if that's what you need to do, or keeping your child, being a single parent, being, not being a single parent. So all of those stories, because often I think we are limited by one single portrayal, and that's not realistic. I have friends that are with their partners. I have, I am a single parent. I'm getting my degree, but then they're, like Danielle said, people working 2 jobs. And so really it's difficult to do, I understand, in the media, but trying to portray as many stories as possible so that there isn't one stereotype or one story that's just getting across, because that's just not realistic. And then, yeah, just adding on the hope and the happy ending, although it doesn't always happen, but trying to get that in there at least somewhere so that young parents know that it is possible.
I truly agree with you, Tanya, a lot. I mean, it can really, really connect with you most of the time. Like, like you mentioned about, there's single parents out there who are doing it. I mean, I'm with my significant other, and we're developing this family very, very strong, trying to, pursue big dreams and aspirations, not only for ourselves but for our little one, who is very, 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 like, imperactive. Like, she wants to be here, there, and there. But I guess the billboard picture that I would probably see more out there would be like, Padres Jóvenes y Nobles, which is in Spanish version, as in, like, young parents and being noble. Also, like, billboards that don't portray teen parents as bad in our community, but also something like not a mistake, a new beginning, or a baby, a new life, a new start, life born once again. Like, motivational billboards that will, like, keep teen parents from going on and have an ideal dream of being like, what, I did this for a cause, and that's the cause for my voice to be heard, and for not only for us as young parents, but for all in general worldwide parents who are out there, because you never know, like, yeah, the picture is real. We are teen parents, but, have we ever asked ourselves about parents in general? Like, there really isn't an age that defines a good parent. We're always going to have struggles. We're always going to have questions asked. But at the end of the day, we're our teen parents. We are seen as teen parents, and we'll go ahead and do it no matter what the struggle is.
Yeah, and to add to that, I think a lot about the portrayal of young parents and young families, and one thing I personally would love to see is, generational stories that are told, because so often young parents' success are measured and compared to people who are not like us, or people who have come from very privileged families, and so we're being held to a very different standard. But when we compare our success and our story to our previous generations, like, we are accomplishing so much, and we're building on what previous generations have done. And something that might seem like a very small success to other people is a huge success for our family, for all of the generations of people who we follow. And so I think it's really important to show the broader picture of what our families look like, and not necessarily just kind of holding us to a standard that we don't even consider success. Letting us define our success, and letting us define and measure what that looks like. So I would add that as well. But I want to thank each and every one of you for taking the time for this important conversation today. We are definitely pushing society to see young parents as part of the fabric of society. We are industrious and valuable members of society. So I also want to emphasize the importance of the Yo Soy campaign. It's bringing this issue to the forefront of the conversation, and it's helping us really focus on the importance of talking about our sexuality as Latinos, and that includes abortion, birth control, parenting young, sexual health education, and so much more. So thank you all for joining us. This conversation will be available online on YouTube, so please do feel free to share and revisit us. Thank you.